Something strange is going on as we get a major update on Artemi Panarin's health and his status ahead of the season opener next week. And this update will shock Rangers fans. We also have multiple other updates on the lineup heading forward and what Mike Sullivan is planning to do with the team. And some of his comments are pretty surprising. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 77% of you who watch these videos on the regular are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with your New York Rangers, go down below, hit that free subscribe button because this channel is built for blue shirt fandom and it's the place to be for all your daily New York Rangers content. But Bret, we have a lot to get to in this episode, including some updates on the roster and some of the moves they've made after making some final cuts, which were pretty interesting. We'll get into that stuff. But first, we have to start with Artemi Panarin and the mystery that is his injury, and it is very interesting. So these are the lines we've last seen at practice. Obviously, some exciting stuff. Noah Laba looks like he's going to make the team. The defense pairings are a little interesting. But as you can notice here, that there is no Artemi Panarin, and he's been kind of like in and out of practice, in and out of games all preseason. And we got an update from Vince Mercogliano, and it's an update, but it is still unclear, the whole situation. So he goes on to say the situation with Panarin is a bit unclear at this point. He was dealing with a lower body issue earlier in camp, which we know. He was in and out of practice and he even played in one game. Then he returned last Friday and practiced with the team all week. But now he's missed last night's game and today's practice with what's being labeled as an upper body injury. Now, you know, sometimes in hockey, management will say it's an upper body injury and it's actually a lower body injury, right? We've seen that before where they kind of play mind games and stuff like that, so nobody really knows what's going on. But you won't have to say it's presumably a different injury, but when asked if it's something new, Sullivan said no. So that's pretty interesting in and of itself. He also added that they're hopeful Panarin will be ready for opening night, but there have been some twists and turns. So it seems like Panarin, you know, at this point, they've been saying, hey, everything's fine. Everything's fine. He's, you know, he'll be back soon. He's going to get some games in. Well, he hasn't at this point. Now his status for next week is hopeful. Like, it doesn't really look like he's going to get into a game. So what do you make of all of that? The Rangers could be starting the season without their best player.
Yeah, it stinks, Darius. It flat out stinks. I mean, the offseason has been a fruitful one. I mean, the Rangers have not had any drama, which has been refreshing. You know, we all saw what happened last year, and
Yeah.
we have a new captain, JT Miller. That was a great choice. And then, we bring in Gavrikov to pair with Fox, a new shiny toy, and things are looking on the upswing. And then, we go out through, training camp and the preseason, and our best player is injured, a top 20 player in hockey. I mean, it's not a good thing for the Rangers. We want to start the year off strong. We want to get rid of that stench from last season and really get the vibes. Opening night, Mike Sullivan's debut against his former team under the bright lights of Madison Square Garden with those beautiful jerseys, and it's going to maybe be without our best player. I mean, that would kind of put a damper in things, but there's always a silver lining, Darius, and the silver lining has been the fact that Panarin being out, we've seen some younger guys. We've seen some younger guys get longer looks than maybe they would have if Panarin was playing the whole time. Not only that, we've seen these younger guys get to play with the big boys. We've seen guys like Perreault and Othman, who's not here anymore, neither is Perreault, play with guys like Zibanejad and Vincent Trocheck. So, not having Panarin has kind of moved everybody up a spot on the depth chart. So, like I said, we've seen these younger guys play with these veteran stars and get longer looks, which has been good to see. But make no mistake about it, it stinks. Any team would tell you it. Just ask Florida. Starting the season without your best player sort of puts a damper in things for opening night.
Definitely. And I think it's going to be unfortunate if he does miss it, but they're remaining hopeful. So we'll see how the next couple of days play out. But he has been in and out with different injuries, or presumably different injuries at this point. Again, they did not confirm nor really deny it, I guess. But Mike Sullivan saying it's not really a new injury, but, it being labeled upper body is different. So pretty interesting stuff. And obviously there have been some cuts. And like you said, some of the younger guys did get some more playing opportunity, but ultimately it looks like it's going to be an all veterans lineup to start. Maybe besides Noah Noah Laba, although it does look like they might make one more cut. But I wanted to get into this quote from Mike Sullivan on Noah Laba specifically, and he said, I think he's gotten better in every game, with every game that he's played, excuse me. He's big, he's long, he's rangy, he's strong, he can skate. We've seen that before, and he has good awareness. I think he's getting better in the face-off circle. I think he's getting more coachable with how we're trying to, or comfortable, excuse me, in how we're trying to approach things. So obviously great praise from there. Mike Sullivan also came out, I thought this was an interesting quote, Bret, that just because you've been sent down right now, and he's speaking directly to guys like Gabe Perreault, possibly Brett Berard, obviously Scott Morrow, and Brennan Othman, just because you've been sent down to start the season doesn't mean we won't see you in November. That's basically what he said. Now, my lie detector is determining that that might be a lie. I think that, there was a reason that he made some of these choices. Connor Sheary is still around, for crying out loud, right? So what do you make of some of that? Because I think that, that's not necessarily true, but I think he's trying to give some, inspiration to the young guys. Like, don't give up. Don't think you're just being sent to Hartford and that's it for the year. For some of them, it actually might be, right? Because there's a bit of a logjam. But what do you make of those comments?
Darius, I 100% disagree. And the reason is because, we just spoke about it. Panarin, what's his status? Not looking too good right now. Hasn't played in a preseason game. Was supposed to make his debut. Didn't happen. JT Miller still dealing with that injury. We've seen Sam Carrick deal with an injury here. So, like Mike Sullivan said, I'm taking him at his word, and I tend to agree with him that these rosters are not etched in stone. These NHL rosters are very fluid. It's a grueling sport. It's a grueling season. Guys get hurt all the time. Guys go in and out of the lineup. And if things get stale, Darius, I know it looks like there's going to be a veteran-heavy presence for Mike Sullivan. It's a little concerning because we know Laviolette loved his veterans as well, Gerard Gallant. But Mike Sullivan leaning into his veterans, leaning into his veteran stars, wanting to get off to a good start with the Rangers. But I do believe that if things are stale, he even said it, in the first 10 to 20 games, that's a pretty, lengthy sample size. If things are stale, if things are dry, we're going to see some juice. We're going to see somebody called up from Hartford, whether it's Perreault, whether it's Othman. If they need a scoring punch, they'll bring up somebody like that. If they just need some juice on the line, they'll bring in Bret Berard. That's what he's known for. Guys just play harder when Bret Berard is in the lineup. Unfortunately, I don't know. I want him to be in the lineup, but I don't believe he will be because I do think Sullivan's going with some veterans here, but I disagree. I think that Sullivan means what he says, that the roster is not etched in stone. We've seen injuries already happen, and the season hasn't even started yet. Once meaningful hockey begins and the intensity rises, there will unfortunately be an injury, and somebody will have to step up.
Definitely. And I think you make some good points as well. And I think that, the league is a lot younger now. So if you're going with a veteran presence and some veteran players, you're probably going to find yourself in a situation where it is stale pretty quickly, right? But from everything I've seen and some of the decisions that have been made, especially in the last week, I think that they're going to go with all the veterans. And I don't know if that's, definitely not a good sign for some of the younger guys because they're not too quick to call up certain guys, right? And we've seen in the past, they'll even prioritize some, older guys who are in the AHL to call up over some of the younger guys. So we'll see what happens ultimately, but I think they're going to, at least to start, go with a more veteran presence. So one of the last things I wanted to touch on is the Rangers look like, and I think this is a great point from NY Louis, are going to have a hard time turning a defense into offense. And we've already seen that in the preseason. Although Noah Laba looks like a guy who's really, really good in transition, so that could be a revelation on the third line if he does end up making the team and not end up getting cut. But they're routinely in the bottom 1/3 of transition offense and 5-on-5 offense because they haven't had more than 2 decent puck movers at once. So they're experimenting with the lines in practice to kind of get that going. Bret, do you have any thoughts on that? Because to me personally, Schneider has to play a bigger role. I think we're in year 5 now of Braden Schneider being on the team. Like, he's got to play. I like that they're experimenting with him on the left side and the second pairing because he's got to play more minutes, I think, at this point. Enough with the sheltered thing. We got to get going here. So you have any thoughts on that before we wrap up? Because, that's going to be a huge thing this year, especially if there's a lack of speed throughout the lineup.
Yeah, 2 quick things before we wrap up here. So the first one with in regard to what NYR Louis said on X, I tend to disagree here. I believe that they'll be fine, turning defense into offense. I know he's talking about the defensive pairs here, but I'm just speaking, in a general sense. Let's not forget watching that game yesterday against the Devils, I know it stinks that they lost to their
Yeah.
rivals, but the Rangers in the first period, they did not look very good. I mean, they were constantly in their own zone. It felt like the Devils were putting pressure on them every chance they got, but there were no clear shooting lanes. The Devils only had a few shots on goal in that first period, just 12 total. So the Rangers did a very nice job securing those lanes, not letting the puck get through, which will serve Igor Shesterkin well because we constantly said it on the channel, faced the most shots
Yep.
in the NHL last season. So, really tightening up those lanes is going to be good. But then in the second and third period, I know the Rangers lost the game, but they outplayed the Devils, and the Devils had the closest thing to a starting NHL lineup that the Rangers have seen, and the Rangers did not. The Rangers did not play all of their top guys. We know that. But in transition as a whole, I thought they looked fine. Let's not forget Trocheck made a couple nice passes in transition. Lafreniere had a golden opportunity in the third period in transition with just a few minutes left. He didn't get the puck past Markstrom, but the Rangers looked fine in transition. I believe on defense they'll be fine as well. I know Fox has kind of gotten off to a slow start here, but once he gets things into high gear, I believe they'll be fine. Schneider, once he gets fully healthy, fully recovered, back in the swing of things, I believe they will be fine in transition. And then the second point here, which was what was the second one, Darius? I had
Well, the
uh,
Schneider playing more of a
Schneider.
bigger role.
Absolutely. Yeah. With Morrow being sent down now, Schneider has to play a bigger role. You can't
Yeah.
just bury this guy on the third pair for the whole season. I know he's just getting back from surgery, but eventually got to play on the second pair left side. Not only that, he's got to quarterback the second power play unit until Scott Morrow is ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he has to play more minutes just at this point, especially until Scott Morrow, like you said, is ready. He's not on the lineup, or he didn't make the lineup, I should say. And he is down in the Hartford Wolfpack now, that system. And, he would have been on power play too, but who's on power play too now? It's probably Braden Schneider, right? So he has to play a bigger role for this team. So it's going to be very interesting to see what ends up happening. And we're going to follow the Panarin situation very, very closely because that's your best player, and we don't really have clarity on what's going on with him right now. So I think that's pretty interesting. But let us know how you feel in the comments down below. The conversation always continues there. You can also find us on TikTok and X. The links are in the description. Go check us out there. And again, let us know how you feel about everything we discussed in this episode down below in the comments. But it's going to be interesting. Opening night just a few days away at this point. We're finally getting some clarity on a lot of things we've been waiting for. So let us know how you feel. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.